Howdy, how's it going? Back here with another video today, and today we're doing week 15 top 25 rankings. This is the last and final week. This is basically my own selection show saying who I have in and who I have out of the college football playoff ranking. The selection show is tomorrow, or technically today, December 4th, Sunday, so I'm trying to get this video up before then. You guys know I usually upload these videos around Mondays or Tuesdays, but since the selection show is coming out today, I want to try to have this out today. So this one is going to be interesting. I'm going to go ahead and tell you guys. I'm gonna start from the bottom, and then I'm gonna just show the top four. Because if I just put it on the screen, people's just gonna click, see it, and then click off. So, and I want to explain this in detail why I have these teams the way I have them. At least the top five, top six, whatever. So number 25, and I'll just skim through these because really any top five and below don't even matter really. The top four is what's going to the playoffs. Yeah, the 5 to 25 rank, they'll still go to. Most of them will still go to. Well, all of them will still go to a bowl game because they're over 5 wins. They're 6 wins at least. So all of them will still go to a bowl game and get a pretty good one. But we're just going to do it that way. So number 25, I got North Carolina. North Carolina had a loss against Clemson, so I got them at number 25. And I am gonna go in and put my old poll up on the board. This is my last week's poll, so keep that in mind. This is not the current one. This is last week's. So that just so that you can see the changes that I've made. So I bumped North Carolina from 21. I bumped them to 25. They lost to Clemson. I felt 25 was fair. You could bump them out, but I bumped them to 25. Number 24, Purdue. They went out, and Cincinnati came in and took their spot at number 24. Number 23, Boise State. They went out. They lost as well. Number 23, NC State came and took their spot. Mississippi State was at number 25. I bumped them up to number 22. They didn't play, but a few teams ahead of them lost, so I bumped them up. Number 21, Texas. They didn't play. I bumped them from 20 to 21 just because of the way that it worked and having to bump a few teams down. And Troy won, so they went from 22. I didn't feel like, I did put them originally at 21, but then I was looking. Troy is 10-2, and I know it's the Sun Belt Conference, but they're 10-2 and they won their conference, so I felt like they deserve to be bumped up maybe one more spot. Texas didn't even play, so I felt like putting a 10-2 Troy over 8-4 Texas was a little bit better situation there. Not saying that Troy would beat Texas. This isn't a power ranking. This is a college football playoff ranking, or whatever you want to call it, poll ranking. It's not a power ranking. So I'm not saying by any means that number 1 would beat number 2, number 2 would beat number 3, number 3. I'm not saying that. I felt like that it was better to put Troy over Troy over Texas, just because they're 10-2. Might have an easier schedule, yes, they do, but they've also won their conference and they're 10-2, so they're at 20. Notre Dame stays at 19 on this week's poll. South Carolina stays at 18. They didn't play either. UCLA stays at number 17. They didn't play. Tulane goes from 16 to 14. And then I've got LSU coming in at number 16. They fell 5 spots after losing to Georgia. Now, the only reason they really fell 5 spots is because there's a few teams below them that ended up winning, like Clemson, like Kansas State, that I had to bump up, or that I felt like that I had to bump up. So that's the only reason they really fell to 16. Really, I mean, they could anywhere from 14 to 15, 14 to 16. I think they fit in. I really don't see any need in bumping them down lower than that. They lost to the number 1 team in the country, and they still fought hard. They fought back. They still put up 30 points against Georgia's defense. That's impressive to me. I think that's impressive. So I got LSU coming in at number 16. Number 15, Oregon, I left them where they were. And then number 14, Kansas State. I've got them coming in at number 8 in this week's poll. They were number 10 in the college football playoff ranking. I had them at 14, but I think eight's a good spot for them. They beat a number 3 team. They beat TCU, who was number 3. So I feel like 8 is a really good spot for Kansas State there. Maybe 9 or 10 as well. But there's a few teams that lost, like UCLA and stuff, that I felt like I had to put them over. Um, no, Number 13 Clemson, they go up to number 12 after beating North Carolina. And then Florida State bumps down to number 13. Um, just simply due to the fact that they didn't play. And Clemson did play and they won, so they had to bump up. Now, you can bump Clemson to number 12, but the way that it worked on my ranking is I have Washington at number 12, and they were already at number 10 last week, and I don't feel like it's really fair to bump them 2 spots just because they didn't play. You can make the argument that, oh, well, they didn't play in their conference championship because they didn't win enough games. It's their fault. Bump them down, whatever. And you could put Clemson at number 11, maybe even number 10. But I've got them at number 12. And I've got, like I said, Washington is at number 11, and then Penn State is at 10. I got UCS at number 9 after losing to Utah. They went from 4 to 9. Only reason I did that is because there are some teams, like I said, behind them that won that got to bump up. Really, you can leave UCLA probably number 7 or 8, as I would feel as well. But I bumped them down to number 9. Kansas State, like I said, I've got an 8. Utah, I've bumped up to number 7. And then I'm going to show the top 6. So I'm going to go in and put the old poll on the board. So I've went through 7 to 25. So I've only got the top 6 to show. And my top 6 and top 4 that I have going to the playoffs, don't really think that this will happen. I don't think the committee will actually do this. But this is not a video for what I think the committee will do. This is a video for what I think, based off of what I see and the way that I do the rankings. And I have taken a look at the power index. I have taken a look at the FPI. I have taken a look at the resume. I will go over that, and I will justify why I have my top 6 where I have them. But first, let's go ahead and get them on the board. If we can get a drum roll, please. My top 6 is coming in. And right now, my top 6 I think we need to take a second. So like I said, I've went off of the resume. I've went off of the FPI. We have our top 6, and I'm about to put them on the board right now. But before I do, go ahead and comment down below. Let me know who you have in your top 6, in your top 4, who you have making the playoffs, why you have them. We know that we're going to be expanding to a 12-team playoff, but right now we're still 4, so we've still got to deal with it for this year and next year. And then we'll finally get what we all wanted. My top 6 coming on the board right now. Here we go. Here's my top 6. So I've got, and I will cut the music, I will kill it. But my top 6 right here. So obviously you see TCU, Bama, Tennessee, Ohio State, Michigan, Georgia. And I did not do it this way. Really, how I would like to see it is Ohio State should have been number 7 in the first place. Tennessee should have been 5, Alabama should have been 6, and then Tennessee should be going to 3, and Alabama should be going to 4, and we should have 3 SEC teams in the playoffs. That's how I really feel. But this is a little bit more realistic way of it happening, although I don't think it will. What I think will happen is I think it will be Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, maybe TCU. I don't agree with that. Or maybe Alabama. But I don't think that they'll put Tennessee in at all. But they should, and I'm going to explain why. So first and foremost, TCU, we'll start with them. They lost to Kansas State. Let's just go down here and let's just look and see if I can even find them all the way down here somewhere on this list. I know TCU has to be down here somewhere. Where is their strength of schedule? Because I'm telling you, TCU is highly, to me, TCU is highly overrated. Yes, they are 12-0. I understand that. I understand that they made it to the conference championship. Okay, but when you look at all this, right? So strength of record, TCU is at 3. Okay, I'll give them that. And strength of record is not strength of schedule. Though that's two separate things. Strength of record basically saying, and I'll read it word for word of what ESPN has on their site, reflects chance that an average top 25 team would have team's record or better given the schedule. So basically, it reflects their record to show what an average top 25 team would have, if an average top 25 team would have their record if they had their schedule. So basically, would any average top 25 team have TCU's record if they had their schedule? Would they be 12-1? Or in this case, it was 12-0 when this was done. And they're at 3. Okay, FPI, which is Football Power Index rank versus all FBS teams, is 10. Okay, let's look at the teams ahead of them. Right, Alabama is at 2. Tennessee is at 5. Ohio State is at 3. Michigan is at 4. Georgia is at 1. Alright. We already know their current rankings in AP and college football playoff rankings, so we don't need to go over that. And then I'll even, let's see here. So I've got this flipped on here so that you guys can see what I'm talking about, so you guys don't just think, what in the world is he talking about? So, you look at this, right? You've got TCU, like I said, their FBI's at 10. Well, then you've got teams like I said, Ohio State, Alabama, Tennessee, all of them have better ranking than that in the FBI, right? Strength of schedule, okay? Now's when it really starts to get interesting because you're looking at their resume, right? This goes into this, right? You don't just say, okay, well, let's pick this school, just because they have the record, just because they're 12-0, or just because they're 12-1, or just because they're 13-0, whatever. That's not the only reason why you put teams in the playoff. Obviously, yeah, if they're 13-0 and they're a team like Georgia or something, then yes, they're going in the playoffs. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying if it's a team like TCU, Ohio State, even Alabama, Tennessee, in a position that they're at, UCS, whatever, you've got to look at this stuff too. It's analytical stuff. It comes into play. You don't just look at the metrics and think, oh, well, just because they have this record, they should be in, or just because TCU was 12-0 and now they're 12-1, they should be in. No, they should not. They lost one of the most important games of their season. They lost their conference championship. They should have won their conference championship if they wanted to go to the playoffs. If you can't win your conference championship, now I know Georgia didn't win their conference championship last year, and they came and they won the Natty. Okay, that's good. But Georgia's like that, right? I don't usually try to trash talk teams in these videos when I do the rankings. I more so save that for TikTok and stuff. Kind of not really troll, but kind of troll. But I'm just gonna flat out say it. TCU's overrated, right? If TCU played any of these teams that are on this, not any of them, but some of these teams that are on this list, they would get blown out. Georgia, I mean, come on, you really think TCU is going to beat Georgia? That ain't happening. Michigan, I mean, That's iffy, but I don't think that's happening. Ohio State, TCU ain't beating Ohio State. Alabama, TCU ain't beating Alabama. Tennessee, if they could stop Tennessee's offense, it would be a close game. But they ain't gonna run all over them. So I mean, just some of these teams. Obviously, Kansas State, they've won one, lost one. LSU, I don't even think TCU would beat LSU. I don't even think they would beat Clemson. TCU is overrated. I'm not taking anything away from them. They had a great season. They went 12-0. They went to their conference championship. They didn't win it, but they went to it. Um, and they're 12-1. But I just don't think that at this point in time, if that one loss had happened earlier in the year and they came back and they finished the season strong, it's about how you finish the season as well. If they came back and they finished the season strong, then I would say with them being 12-1, yeah, they could get in. But that's not how it happened. The loss happened just now. You can't say that they're going to go from 3-4 and they're still going to get in. I don't agree with that at all. And I know you don't have some teams playing and stuff, and they don't. I know some people feel like they don't deserve to just be able to sit home and then get in. Um, but personally, I think sitting at home and not having a win or loss added to your record is better to get in than to get a loss, because to get a loss at this point almost to me should guarantee that you're going to get thrown out, right? Because I can tell you, it Tennessee lost to Georgia and they went from number 1 to number 5. Ohio State lost and they went from number 3 to number 5. Alabama lost. They fell 3 or 4 rankings when they lost. I mean, just some of these teams, when you lose, that doesn't mean that you should just fall 1 or 2 rankings, especially if you lose to a team that's like 4, 5, 6, 7 rankings lower than you. That's not how it works. UCS is going to fall out. So, and they're not just going to fall to 5, I don't think. They'll fall farther than that. So, but UCS doesn't really have the same record. So, um, my point is, I think TCU is a little bit overrated. If you come and you look at the strength of schedule right here, they do have a 25, yeah, and Georgia has a 36. So they do have a harder schedule than Georgia or Michigan or even Ohio State. But look at this: Alabama number 9, Tennessee number 8, Tennessee and then LSU number 2. So Tennessee, out of the top 5 or 6 teams, has the hardest schedule, and they still went 10-2. So then now you're talking about Tennessee or Alabama. Who would you put in, Tennessee or Alabama? Well, let's look. You got Alabama and Tennessee. Strength of record rank, Alabama's 1 higher than Tennessee. FBI, Alabama's 3 higher. But then strength of schedule, Alabama's 1 lower. So that has to be taken into play. I think, but see, the strength of record also goes off of the strength of schedule, because the strength of record is basically like if a team had your record, an average top 25 team, would they go 10-2? Because both Tennessee and Alabama went 10-2, but then Tennessee has the harder schedule, so I think Tennessee should get in over Bama, and they have the win over Alabama. Yes, I know that they got blown out by South Carolina. It was an off game. I'm not making an excuse for that. They should have beat them, and then we wouldn't even have to be talking this talk. Like, it would be almost guaranteed that they would be getting in. We wouldn't even be having this conversation if or should. We would just be saying when. But I definitely think that, and it's not just because I'm a Tennessee fan. It's just looking, if it happened the opposite way, I would say the same thing. Or if it happened with not even my team. If it happened between Ohio State and Michigan, or whatever, I would be saying the same thing. Mainly because they have the same record. Tennessee won, and I understand Alabama has only lost their 2 games by 4 points. They lost both games on the road. I get that. However, Tennessee lost both games on the road as well. Georgia's a hostile environment. South Carolina was hostile, turned hostile. Then you have Hendon Hooker go down. And then after that, it's almost just like the team gave up. Um, it's just the fight went out of them. You lose your starting quarterback, who's a Heisman contender and everything. You're already down by, you know, 2 or 3 touchdowns. I mean, the fight just goes out of you. Now, that's not an excuse to lose in that game, but that's all things that should be looked at, right? Should be a whole analytical field that is looked at completely. Then you look at game control rank. How many games have they controlled? Alabama is better than them in that ranking. Then you look at teams average in game win probability rank adjusted for chance that an average FBS team would control games from start to end the way that this team did given the schedule. You got Alabama at 5, Tennessee at 7. Then you got the FBI ranking. Obviously, there's some of the same things. So, uh, football power index, you got Georgia 28, Alabama 26, Tennessee all the way down here at 21. They're number 5 in the FPI. So I mean, really, when you look at it in this way, you look at the efficiencies here. So overall efficiency, Tennessee is number 5 on the list. Offense efficiency, Tennessee's offense is number 2 on the list. I giggled a little because I glanced over at our defense and I see it 55. Horrible defense, and I will give anyone that. Out of the top, look, out of the top 25 FPI ranked schools, Tennessee's defense, there's one at 70. There's one at 68. UCS has a bad defense too. But besides UCS and Washington, Tennessee has the worst. And out of the top 10, they have the worst. They have an awful defense. If Tennessee could get somewhere around like a defense like this, or this, or this even, and still keep this same offense, Tennessee could be a really good team, really good. But they don't have a defense at the moment in time. If they had a defense, now the offense didn't really score on Georgia, so that game might not have changed much. It might have been a little bit closer. But if they had a defense, that South Carolina game wouldn't have been like that. And I'm not making a lot of excuses, but our offense put up 30-something points. I even forgot the score now. 63 to 38. So 38 points and still lost. Yeah, that shouldn't have happened. But I'm going to throw this back on the board real quick. So here's this back on the board. So we got Alabama at 5, Tennessee at 4. Mainly Tennessee's strength of schedule, and because Tennessee has the win over them, and because Tennessee has the win over LSU at LSU. And I know it was a noon game, but it still happened. And they blew LSU out, and then LSU beat Alabama. So Tennessee has the win against Alabama and LSU, which LSU beat Alabama. So that's why I got Tennessee 1 rank here above Bama. Then I got Ohio State at number 3. They get back in because TCU loses. I don't think TCU should make it after that. And then I got Georgia at 2 because they won. Michigan at 2 because they won, and then Georgia at 1 because they won. And that's basically my Week 15 top 25 ranking. And that's my top 4 teams that I've got in. So my top 4 teams that I got in is Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, and Tennessee. Michigan and Ohio State rematch. What I think really will happen is I think it will be Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, and Alabama, or TCU. Although I don't think the TCU should get in, but they might. But even Alabama getting in, I'd kind of be okay with that because then you got Georgia and Alabama rematch and Michigan and Ohio State rematch. And then you still got, I think, Tennessee. You still have to have them on the outside looking in at the 5 or 6 spot. Really, 6, I think, would be well, they didn't play, and they're at number 7 in the current rankings. So number 6 might not be really disrespectful. And then you have TCU at 5 looking in on the outside. And then you have, I think, TCU playing Clemson in the Orange Bowl if that were to happen. But this is my week 15 top 25 rankings. So many numbers. Been staring at numbers the last few minutes, so my brain's kind of getting wound up in it. But go ahead and leave a like, subscribe, share the video, and let me know what you've got in your top 4 or top 25 even, and why you have them where you have them. And then go check out the TikTok as well. I'll have video over there about this. And yeah, this has been your boy TN Smooth saying peace.